is the fact that change and transition are different. So change is what happens to you. Change is, your loved one dying. Change is your job lays you off. Change is the pandemic. You can't control that. Sometimes you can. So sometimes you can change your hair. You can change where you're living. You can change your role on your job. But sometimes you can't. And I think where we get stuck is when changes happen and we don't know what to do. We get stuck is where changes happen and the change that happens throws off what you thought God was up to in your life. And so transition is different from change because change is what happens, but transition is how we respond. So when you realize how I need to respond to the change that is unfolding in my life, it requires a decision. You have to make a choice. So, when we get laid off, that's a change that we did not control, but now we have a choice. Am I going to sit and just, start singing, nobody knows the trouble I done seen? Am I going to start sitting and go spiritual? Or am I going to say, okay, what can I do with this moment, with this opportunity? So when we experience the change of a global pandemic, am I going to allow that to put me into a state of perpetual anxiety? Or am I going to say, I didn't like going into the office all that much, no way. I didn't like my coworkers. Now I get to work at home, and now I have all the time I was complaining I didn't have. I can write this book. Yeah. So there are decisions that we can make when change happens that allows us to actually transition.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things about change, because change is always going to happen, is that what I find is that we tend to get stuck in the expectation of what we thought it should be or what we think it should be. And I think that we tend to not grieve the expectation of life on what we thought it was supposed to be. Like, what do you think people can do when they're so hung up on that expectation on life and what it should have been like?
Yeah. God is not obligated to honor your vision board. I'm not telling you not to do a vision board, but I feel bad for people who go to vision board parties. Because it's like they leave the vision board party and they say, I have written the vision for my life and I'm going to send it to God. And now everything that I've decided is going to happen is going to happen. And I just feel bad because God's like, oh, that's nice. I mean, most of our frustration, most of our disappointment has to do with our expectations. It ain't got nothing to do with anything God has ever guaranteed. So God never said that they weren't going to walk out on you. God never said that you were going to be on that job forever. God never said that it was going to be easy or simple. God never said that just because he called you to do that ministry, that the place that you were in when he called you was going to embrace you and platform you and set you up. So what happens is we attach our expectations to God's imagination for our life. And when it doesn't go the way we thought it would, we get stuck. So how do we respond to that? We have to decide to let it go. Mm-hmm. We have to decide to reconcile that. We have to decide to grieve. Grief is an intentional decision. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is a decision to say it did not happen the way I wanted it to happen. And that is offensive. We'll take that to Christians. It is offensive to Christians to have to do that because when we got saved, the preacher lied. I'm a preacher and I lied too. Because we let you believe when you got saved that it was just going to be wonderful. You're going to be saved from all distress and all distress. We said if you become a Christian, you won't go to hell. And then hell came to you. We didn't tell you that part. All kind of affliction happened. All kind of struggles happened. But those struggles are the opportunities that actually unfold our destiny. It is actually the thing that happens that we don't expect and don't want that leads us to what we've been created to be. But the longer we wrestle and struggle with the way we thought it would go and the way we wanted it to be, the more we will miss out on what we actually have. So we have to grieve it. So we have to say, okay, that didn't go the way I planned. Okay, I have to accept this. Sometimes we think that if we don't accept it, it'll go away. And so we walk around in denial. I'm just, and then we start speaking Christianese. Well, God's got it. God's going to work it out. I know. I know God's going to turn it. And God's like, yeah, I'm not turning that. Because if I turn that, you're going to miss the turn of your destiny. So I'm not turning that. So no, you have to grieve this loss. You have to acknowledge that it's not happening the way you wanted it to happen. And the moment you start to grieve, you begin to discover when you let go of what you lost, you will realize what's in front of you.
Yeah, that's good. And one of the things about life is that it's forever changing. And I think one thing that we don't do enough is ask questions, right? We don't allow those thoughts to move. So those thoughts ends up becoming how we feel. And how we feel determines our actions, whether we act or not act on our goals, whether we do things impulsively. And there's these questions that Shaun has come to understand that God has destined him to help people move forward. And I kind of want to go through 5 of these questions. And one of the things about blood is that, like, if it's not moving, we can die, right? Like, we're not able to survive. And then with our thoughts, if we're not moving our thoughts, we're not living life. And I think that it's important to understand that living and surviving looks like 2 different things. And because you're here, and in this manifest service, I feel like you've made a decision to want to work on change. So one of the first question that I love that Shaun asks is, who are you? Why is who are you an important thing for people to understand, and how could they understand that?
So I hope I don't. Sometimes I get asked a question, so many things start popping up in my head saying, talk about me. So let me say, because we live in a production-oriented society, because we live in a capitalist society, because we love money, the thing that we ask kids, the question we ask is, what do you want to do when you grow up? And we're always thinking about purpose in terms of, what am I supposed to be doing? And the reason why who are you is an important first question, because if you don't know who you are, you will rely on what you do to tell you who you are. And what if you're wrong? So what if I pick up a screwdriver to drive a nail in the wall and the screwdriver walks away thinking it's a hammer? If we focus on what we're doing, we will miss who we are. But if you ask the question, Lord, who am I? Then who you are will tell you what you're supposed to do. And you don't have to work to do who you are. You just be. Because when you be, you will do what you be. Mm-hmm. But we stress out so much about what we're supposed to do. And what happens is then people attach what they think you should do to you. And before you know it, you have abused yourself, because if you don't know who you are and you do something that is inconsistent with who you are, then you abuse your life. Yeah. And you misuse your life. Yeah. And so we have to stop worrying about not doing what we're supposed to do. So here it is. Psalm 19:1 says, the heavens declare the glory of God. Day by day they utter speech, though they have no mouth. How do the heavens declare the glory of God? By being the heavens, by being what they were created to be. The mountains declare the mountains don't have to mountain. They are just mountains. And so when you see them, what do? You look at them and you go, wow, God. When you ask, who am I? You give yourself an opportunity to be the person that God created you to be. And in simply being who you were created to be, when people see you being, they look at you and they go, wow, God. So can I tell you, I don't know how to do what I do.
I don't either. I just do it.
I just be. I just be. I was on the phone the other day with a company that I have the opportunity to do a 6-figure consulting contract with. A friend of mine hooked me in with this conversation. And she said, well, they want you to come in and consult with them and do some coaching and training with them. And I said, okay. I had no idea how to prepare for this meeting. Because I didn't know what it was that they wanted. I didn't know what it was. They just said, hey, we need to do some training and do some development. I said, okay. I got on the phone. I got on the Zoom call. And the Zoom call started. And I just started talking. I'm like, God, if you don't say something, it'll be evident real quick that this is not for me. And after about 20 minutes, this woman said, wow, that's exactly what I need. So when can we start? That's right. Say it again.
Wow.
Okay. Can I teach you how I did that? No. I just figured out who I be. So now wherever I go, I be and I end up doing. Now watch this. This is going to make you shout. When you know who you be, wherever you show up, you have value.
Wow.
And when you show up in the space being what only you can be, that's when you get paid. So we stress out trying to figure out what we need to do to be okay, what we need to do to be paid, what we need to do to be secure. And it's already in your identity because your identity leads you to your purpose. Your purpose then leads you to your destiny. And you don't have to figure out where you're going to be in 10 years. Because if I know who I'm going to be in 10 years, then I'm going to be all right. Because wherever I be, I'll be doing what I be, making only what I can make, being only what I can be. I can't rewind that. So.
Identity, purpose, destiny, and who you are, not just our society when we talk about what we want to do when we grow up, plays a role in how we feel who we are, but also our experiences. And I think it's important to understand just because you may have experienced some hard things does not mean that's who you were destined to be. Yes. One of the things that I always tell people is that broken crayons still color and they still hold value. And I know that for a lot of people who may not know who they are, they may have framed it on a lens that is a fragmented lens. And part of like reconciliation is kind of like accepting what has happened and accepting what is. And then you understand who you are, the broken pieces and all. But I think when we're able to do that, we're able to move forward. And the second question, not just who we are, but the second question Shaun always asks people is, why are you here? Why is that question important?
Can I just back up a second? Did y'all hear that say, broken crayon still color?
Yes.
See, she's a preacher. She don't know she's a preacher. See, I would have been, broken crayon still color. Are you broken? Pick up the broken piece. It would have been over.
I'm trying to be authentic, though. I'm trying to be authentic.
I'll be authentic with that next time I preach. Close that out and be flat. That's all I'm telling you. So yeah, so what's the question again?
Why are you here? So that these questions that I'm asking about who you are, why are you here, these are Shaun's questions that he lives by, and he asks people to help them open up a little bit. Yes. So why is that question an important question for people to grapple with?
It's an important question because that is the question of that is the question of purpose. Because when you know who you are, then the question becomes, so why am I here? So this is a microphone. This microphone is in this space. Why is this microphone here? To help amplify sound. So if this microphone knows what it is, who it is, then it can begin to, in every environment that it's in, ask, okay, why am I here? And the answer to that question is what gives you clarity and insight into what you are there to do. It also helps you to know when it's time to go. Because if I can't be who I am here, then there's no reason for me to be here. Yeah. So if there's nobody in here that needs to hear the amplifying of my sound, then there's no reason for this microphone to be. So why would this microphone be in this space if there are people in the next room who can't hear the speaker? So why am I here will also help you to understand when you have served your purpose in a place. Not just what your purpose is in a place, but when you have served your purpose and when you have completed your assignment in this place. So why am I here helps you to know what your assignment is in the place that you're in.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we stay in spaces too long, and if we're not asking ourselves those questions, we tend to get stagnant, right? And I think that a lot of people aren't aware of that because they're not aware of who they are. And so when you know who you are, no one can tell you who you're not. I would say that when you have that mindset, no one can take that away from you. What's in here, no one can change that. But you have to harness it. You have to allow yourself to be in spaces and environment that's going to allow you to continue with that mindset. Because I always say, like, when we're hungry, we will go to the refrigerator, but when we're spiritually hungry, sometimes we don't do what we need to do. And so it's so important to recognize when that's happening. The next question is, what do you need to do now? I love this question because it's about action. Faith that works is dead. So why is it that we need to understand what we can do right now in this moment?
Because we get distracted, and this is where the vision board messes us up, because we get distracted by what we want to do later or at some point in the future, and we miss the fact that it is our faithfulness to the actions in the present that unfold the future. So our preoccupation with the future, with destiny is none of our business because you can't do nothing about it. You can only do stuff here. And so what we end up doing is we end up being preoccupied about what we're going to do one day, and we fail to do the simple things that we can do now. So let's say God has called you to make a difference in hunger. So then we get overwhelmed because we figure out that it'll take about $3 billion to feed everybody on the planet. And now we're stuck. And now we walk around talking about, God called me to end world hunger, but I'm just waiting on the Lord to come and send me a fund. I'm going to Atlanta to meet Tyler Perry because I think Tyler Perry is going to give me $1 billion. It's going to help me start this foundation. And what we miss is, who are the hungry people on your block? Can you make 3 sandwiches for them 3 hungry people and be faithful with them 3 hungry people, and then somebody else finds out that you feed people, and then you feed the 4th hungry person. Then you make 5 sandwiches. Then somebody who's blessed says, hey, I want to sow into them 5 sandwiches that you make every week. And then somebody else says, hey, what do you need to make 10? And then somebody else says, hey, we got some hungry people on our block. And if you start where you can start, all of a sudden you look up and the things that you were faithful to do now carry you into the future that you dream about, and you didn't even need to ask Tyler Perry for no money. Mm-hmm. So we get distracted by later and we miss what we can do now. So the question, what do I need to do now, is a question that awakens you to whatever door is right in front of you. Mm-hmm. We obsess about the future and we miss the door that is right in front of us. In 2003, I had an opportunity to be a part of a church plant in Detroit. Some of you may know Pastor Harvey here. God called me to be part of that church plant. I had a good job here. I had a real good job. I was 22 years old, and I had a good job, and it was working 25 hours a week. And I had my summers off, and I was making good money. And God said, I'm calling you to Detroit. And I said, Satan, the Lord rebuke you. I bind you in the name of Jesus. I plead the blood of Jesus against you. And God said, when you get through binding me, I want you to get up. I want you to call your boss and tell them you're not going to be at work next month because you're leaving and you're going to Detroit. So I went there, and now I had some kind of idea about what God was calling me to do and be in the future. But it didn't make sense why he would call me to this place. I didn't really know anybody. I didn't really feel like being a part of this. I said yes to that. When I said yes to that, it connected me to the denomination, the Evangelical Covenant Church. When I connected to the denomination, the Evangelical Covenant church. I became a coach, coaching other pastors on how to plant churches. When I did that, that led me to pastoring a church. When I pastored that church, that led me to working in the denomination, being a director of how to help other churches do that, which led me back here, which through the course of that first yes, God was unfolding other yeses. See, when you open one door, then the other doors begin to open. But we want the last door to open before we open the first door. So we want God to take us all the way to the end, and the end never starts without the beginning, and sometimes the beginnings are small. That's why he said, despise not the day of small beginning. And so.
And yeah, that's good. I have a practical example. I've always said that I felt like I wanted to help people heal as I've been healing. Wanted people to show people another way. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. But I just started sharing quotes on social media. Didn't have a practice open. But I knew there was more for me. And eventually I opened up a practice. I would sit with people that would talk about podcasting, and they want to podcast. And I had no idea what it was, but I would encourage them to keep moving forward. And then I just said, let me go on YouTube and start talking to people about life, because, that's what I had. It was free. Social media was free. YouTube was free. And I did that. And then eventually I wanted to create my own. And I started this podcast in 2018 we're in 2021 and I'm in over 100 countries. And I remember when at one of Shaun's events, I said, I want to help nations heal. And the fact that, people are able to learn about change and transition and shifting their thought process. I'm always in awe when I wake up to know, like, I started with posting on Instagram. Yes. So I always encourage people to just use what you have. That's all I had. And eventually, the more you put one foot in front of the other, he'll give you what you need, but he can't give you what you need if you're not putting one foot in front of the other.
Now, did you know you were going to be in 100 countries?
I didn't know that.
And if you knew that, did you even know how you were?
I wouldn't know. I didn't know.
Right. So Instagram led to 100 countries. And I think sometimes, too, what we do is we really assume that we're smarter than God. We start off with the assumption that we're smarter than God, and we think that we're better visionaries than God. So our vision would have been, I'm going to be all over the country. And God's like, okay, well, I'll just give these other 99 countries to somebody else. If that's what you want to do, that's cool. But he does exceeding and abundantly above all that we can ask or think, according to the power that works in us. And sometimes the power that works in us is the simple thing that is right in front of us that we can do right now, today.
The last question he asks is, where is your life headed? This is something that is important to know. And I think when, we have a lens on life from our wombs, I always use this example. If I had pink shades on, and that's the only thing I've ever had, I've never taken them off, I would assume that the sky was pink. And you could tell me it's blue, and everybody could say it's blue, but it doesn't matter what you say because the sky's pink, which is why you may have people in your life you try to encourage, and sometimes it's challenging because of everything that's in them. They're looking at it from that lens. But when I take the glasses off and I start to see that the sky's blue, it opens up a different mindset. So where is your life headed is an important question to tackle with, but I'm going to ask Shaun to tell us, why is that an important thing? Why did you put that there?
So anybody going back to the movies and theaters? Anybody been back in the theaters for a movie? Okay, that's cool. How many of y'all I ain't going back? I ain't going back to COVID and stuff. How many of y'all? Be honest. Okay, you ain't gonna be honest. I mean, if everybody didn't raise their hand on the first question, that'd be listening. But in the movie theaters, when you go to the movie, they always show you sneak previews, right? And the sneak previews are maybe 90 seconds or 2 minutes. They never show you the whole movie. They never give the plot away. They never they never tell you the plot twist in the sneak preview. Why is that? Because the sneak preview gives you just enough information to make you want to show up. And so the question of where is my life headed reveals how God deals with us about destiny. And God gives us enough of a preview of the future to get us to show up. So God will give you a vision. God will give you a piece of a dream. God will give you an image. God will give you a flash. The preacher will be preaching, and all of a sudden something will click for you, and it feels like this is my future. And then you sit and you're like, okay, God, what are the other details? And God's like, if I did that, there'd be no point for you to come and see the show. And so God gives you enough information to get you to show up. It is not for you to fill out the whole picture. It is for you to have that in the back of your mind as a reminder. This is why I'm here. So my sneak previews go something like this. I want to see people who say, God's called me to this, and then actually look up and they're doing that. I want to see people who say, I'm supposed to write a book, and somehow my life helps them to finish that book. I want to see people who say, God's called me to start a business. God's called me to start a ministry. I have an idea. I want to help young people. I want to help kids. I want to be a youth pastor, and I don't know where to begin. I want to see my life be used by God to say, okay, they went from here and now they're there. And that's why transitions was so important to me, because sometimes it's knowing how to navigate the in-between that makes the difference in whether or not you actually get there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Good. I like that. And so just to recap the questions, who are you? Why are you here? What do you need to know now? What do you need to do now? And then where is your life headed? And so one of the things I say, I'm very solution oriented. And when I think about these questions that we need to ask ourselves, there's this statement that Shaun has on page 119. It says, instead of living with the constant anxiety of trying to get things right, we can simply show up knowing that the future is secured by God's grace. And I really think that in order to show up, we got to really understand those questions. Why do you think that's important for people to simply just show up?
Because God has worked out more than you think he has. God has done more than you think he has. And we worry about the things that we can't control. And the things that we do control are showing up. It's just being who you are. I can't tell you how many times the Lord has blessed me simply by choosing to show up. By choosing, in spite of how I felt, in spite of how I felt about myself, in spite of how I felt that day, by simply making the decision, I'm going to be present. I'm going to be there. I had, in 2019, I felt like God was saying to me, write this book, finish it. And I drug my feet. Anybody ever drug their feet? All of a sudden you felt like God told you to do it. And you ain't got no other excuse. You ain't, yeah, the job was stressful, but when is the job not stressful? Yeah, you got kids, okay, but when do our kids not act a fool, right? They act a fool all the time at every age. I just wait for them to get older. Then they act a different kind of fool. But I had no excuse. I just drug my feet, and lo and behold, the pandemic hit. And this is what I said. I said, I missed it. It's too late. I missed it. These people could have been at home reading this book. Here it is, a change that's happened. This is the biggest change that any of us have ever experienced in our lifetime, unless you're over 100 and you were here for the last one, right? And so I said, I missed it. And God said, just show up and finish it. Just finish it. Trust me, finish it. And I finished it. And I wanted to self-publish, didn't know how to publish it. I had somebody I was going to do it with. The pandemic hit and they said, we're moving a different direction. I said, God, it's too late. And he said, just show up and finish it. Then my friend Sharonda called me and she said, hey, I have an investor. We're starting a publishing company. Are you still writing that book? We're going to cover the expenses for the book to be published and printed. Do you still want to publish that book? I said, oh, yeah. And she published the book, we printed the book, we released the book, and I was doing an interview. Now watch this, because you can be faithful to something and still feel like you missed it. You can produce it and still feel like you missed the opportune time. Anybody been there? So I finished it, and then I'm doing a podcast with this guy, William Vanderbilt, who is like the expert church consultant. And he says to me, he says, Shaun, your book has arrived at the perfect time. He said, because there's no other time when people are as alert to the reality of change as they are right now. And then it hit me, right? God said to me this, and I'll leave with this, that the only thing you have to do is show up. God said to me, I made time. So time is not my problem. Time is your problem. So you stop letting time tell you what I can do. Because time reports to me. Yeah. I said, so God, what do you need me to do? I need you to shut up and show up. I need you to do what I put you here to do and just show up and stop beating yourself up over what you should have done then, what you wished you had done then, what you didn't have, how you handled your money, how you didn't handle your money, how you parented, how you shouldn't have parented, how you should. I need you to show up right now because you cannot change how you didn't show up then, but you can show up now. And when I decided to show up now, God brought everything I needed, everything I thought it was too late for. God started doing it. So just show up. And in the book, I taught this whole chapter on trusting God. Trust God with what you can't do, and you will see him do what you never thought he could do when you just show up. Yeah.
That's good. And another thing about time, if you ever find yourself feeling like you don't have time, if you say I can't find time, you'll never find time. It's important to change that language. I need to create time, like create it in your schedule. A lot of times people will do any and everything for everyone else, but then when it comes to themselves, they tell themselves they don't have time. But you got to create it, and that's an important thing to change. The last thing I want to grapple with, because this is something that I struggled with for so long, and so many people struggle with, on page 132, Shaun says that I may not have all the information, in parentheses, God, why did this happen to me? I can tell the story of my transformation. Here's how God used this experience to develop me. The worst thing that could possibly happen to me in life is for me to lose the awareness of God and who I am becoming. Telling my story helps me to see God's power at work in every moment of pain and reminds me that pain is never purposeless. Why, one of the things that so many people are dealing with is that why part. God, why did this happen to me? And like I said, I struggled with that mindset, and reading this, and I literally understand that the reason why I've been able to push forward is because of the way I'm framing my story and understanding the positions that God has placed me in, despite what's happened, and how I've been able to use my pain for purpose and share it with other people and have language to help other people with their process. Why is that? What can people do about that are with that today?
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. We get stuck with why it happened to me. And we miss that there's something that we get out of it that we can give that will help others. And I am coming into the space of realizing, I joked about Celeste being a therapist earlier, but
I'm a real therapist, though.
she's a real therapist. You know what I'm saying? I joked about you. I joked about you being a therapist, like, you know, I don't know what I got myself into. But y'all, I have two therapists. The greatest hack in life is Jesus and a therapist. I'm say it again. The greatest hack in life is Jesus and your therapist. Because Jesus will tell you what God is up to, and your therapist will tell you what you're up to. Because the problem is never what God is up to. The problem is you figuring yourself out and meeting God where He is. And what I'm realizing is some of my hardest pains have been some of my greatest gifts. But you only realize that when you stop saying, why did this happen to me? And you change the question a little bit and you start asking, for what purpose have I experienced this? Because God does not waste pain. I'll say it again. God does not waste pain. I'll say it one more time. God does not waste pain. And so we get stuck because we assume that things that happen to us that hurt happen for no reason. And now we're mad at God. God, why didn't you protect me from this? Why did it happen this way? And God's like, if only you could realize, first of all, that you're here. Because if somebody else had gone through that, they wouldn't be here. If somebody else had experienced that, they would have killed themselves. They would have quit. They would have just stopped. But you've gone through it and you went through it. Did you hear me? Yeah. You went through it and you went through it. You didn't stop or die in it. So now that you've come through it, for what purpose did I come through it? What power did I get? And I have made a decision in my life that if I've gone through any pain, I'm going to profit from it. I'm going to profit. It's going to be somebody's book. It's going to be somebody's course. It's going to be some speaking engagement. If there's anything that hurts me, God is going to show me how this thing is not just going to help me, but it's going to help other people. And again, it is the pain that we go through that actually unfolds the purpose that we've been created to serve. So I've begun to see pain as a key that unlocks the mysteries of my purpose.
Mm-hmm. And for people listening to this and here, I think that depending on where you are in your journey on this, I feel like it's a spectrum of trying to heal. It may be hard to hear that like this, there's something greater when I'm in so much pain. But I do want you to continue thinking about what can I do next? What can I do right now? And know that it takes time. Healing is a journey. It takes time to get to this place of, okay, I get it now, right? And if you don't have it tomorrow, I remember I grew up in church and this lady would say, I was saying, I just don't get it, but I was going because I had to go. And she just said, just keep opening the Bible. And she told me to do some things. And I remember one time I opened the Bible and it said, lean not on your own understanding. And so that's something that I do. I don't spend a lot of time asking why. I grieve, I accept. And I think acceptance is huge. Grieving is huge. It will take you to places that you didn't know you can go. The fact that I'm here talking to a pastor on this podcast is something I would have never thought I would be doing. But I think the acceptance and the grieving part really helped me move forward. Shaun, who is this book for? Transitions. And for people that may not have gotten it yet, what can they expect to get out of it?
This is for anybody who is stuck. If you've ever been stuck, y'all know Chicago weather, so you get stuck in the snow. And I talk about how my uncle, one time I was stuck in the snow at the beginning of the book. I talk about how I was stuck in the snow, and my uncle woke up drunk. Y'all know my uncle is one of those people, he just stays drunk. He doesn't need to drink because his blood is liquid. I mean, every time you see him, he's just drunk. And so I got stuck in the snow, and for the first time in my life, my uncle sobered up. I never heard him speak clearly to me. I never saw him look me in the eye. When he saw I was stuck, he sobered up, got a shovel, and helped dig me out. He got salt and a shovel. So this book is for people who are stuck. This book is for people who are stuck, and you feel like the people you thought were going to help you are drunk on your life. And so I am your sober friend that come along. I'm your sober uncle. Come along and give you salt in the shovels. That's what this is for. Today, the book is $10. You can get the book at ShaunMarshallBook.com. Today it is $10, ShaunMarshallBook.com. I will send you an autographed copy today, $10.
Dang, you get an autograph copy? I didn't get an
autograph. What?
I didn't get an autograph.
You sure did. Oh, Lord. So, you didn't either? My publisher didn't get an autograph copy. Oh, Lord, I'm in trouble. But y'all will get an autograph copy, and I got autographed their copies. I will send you an autographed copy. We will rush it to you today. Only $10. ShaunMarshallBook.com. Okay?
And I also, for people that have the book, or if you're going to get the book, there's a lot of questions in here. And I would encourage you to do it with a notebook and write those questions out and actually answer those questions. Again, once our thoughts are moving, we get more clarity, right? I'll have people sitting, in sessions, and they'll be saying something, and then as the words start flowing out their mouth, they're like, hold on, that don't make no sense. Because a lot of times where it's like you versus you, you're battling in your own mind. And a lot of times when those thoughts go unprocessed, they become real and they become your reality. And so there's so many amazing questions in here that can really help you rethink some things and understand yourself a little bit better. So that's my thing. I'm not just saying that because I like you. I really enjoy this book.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any last words you want to tell the people?
That no matter what transitions they're facing, that it's already worked out. Like, you don't have to fix your life. You just have to show up for it. Your life is not broken. I'm going to say it again. Your life is not broken. You just have to show up to see how it's going to unfold. When Joseph came out of the pit that his brothers threw him in, he came out of the pit into slavery. He came out of slavery into jail. He was forgotten in jail. And when he came out of jail, he was in the place God showed him. Your life is not broken. You are right where you need to be. Okay? All God needs from you is to show up for your life, and you'll be okay.
Thank you. That was good. Do what you can, use what you have. Do what you can right now with what you have right now. That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Good.
Okay, be clear. Y'all give it up for Celeste.